Paris is building a wall around the Eiffel Tower in order to prevent more incidents of cultural enrichment around the monument likely to be caused by diversity and progress. But you see, it's not a wall, it's merely an aesthetic perimeter. From where I'm standing, France overall needs several, aesthetic perimeters, not just one. Also, while we're at it, we should take a look at the election cycle too. So, let's explore. Hello everyone and welcome to the Freedom Alternative. Alright, let's talk about France. A few things have happened lately in France, including new developments in the presidential race, which we'll also cover. But first of all, let's talk about the aesthetic perimeter in Paris. No, seriously. So, coming from The Independent, Paris to build bulletproof wall around Eiffel Tower. Gee, I wonder why they feel that's needed. And it goes like this, quote, "The Parisian landscape is to undergo a major change in response to the threat of terrorism after city authorities confirmed plans for the erection of a permanent security barrier around the Eiffel Tower. The 20 million euros structure will replace temporary fences first put up in 2012 after the Euro 2012 tournament and which have remained there since 2015 after a series of terror attacks across France. It will be a massive overhaul for Paris's most iconic monument, incorporating the space under the tower and two ponds on either side of it in an area about 200 by 300 meters. According to French daily Le Parisien, the wall will be made of bulletproof glass and will stand 2.5 meters high. Sadly, the risk of terrorism hasn't gone away, Deputy Mayor Jean-François Martin said at a Paris press conference. This is a necessity in terms of security, but it will also make it possible to re-establish a link between the forecourt of the monument and the gardens, he said. He told journalists, "It's not a wall, it's an aesthetic perimeter." So, basically, they're gonna build a wall and make the Eiffel Tower great again. Now, if you'll want to visit the area, you'll have to first go through a security check before being allowed inside the secure, bulletproof compound. Now, isn't that lovely? Alright, but why the sudden idea? I mean, it's not like terrorism is something new in France, so why now? Well, I don't know the exact answer, but if I were to speculate, I would speculate that it's because of the riots. One aspect of Paris that you rarely see covered in the English language media is the fact that riots are part and parcel of being in Paris. They happen so frequently that most of the times they don't even make the news. And sometimes the government orders the local authorities to keep quiet and pretend they didn't happen, lest it will affect tourism. If you look around the cathedral media, you'll see that there were a few riots last week allegedly in response to a man allegedly having been raped by a police officer. Now, even if the rape allegation had been true, that still doesn't justify smashing windows, burning cars, and trying to kill cops and basically any white person you meet on the streets. But the rape allegation is very likely to be false. Now, if you read the account by the alleged victim and by those who support the alleged victim, you'll realize that the incident could not have happened the way it has been described. It's just not possible. At best, during the struggle to have the alleged victim arrested, the police officer's truncheon got moved, the wrong way. Terrible accident for sure, but rape? Yeah, I don't think so. Anyway, the thing is that the riots did not stop. What you're looking at now is footage from February the 13th. That's 7 days after the protests for the incident organized under the hashtag Justice pour Théo, and 6 days after François Hollande himself visited the alleged victim in the hospital and by and large quelled the conflict. In reality, the riots did spread, particularly in the Paris suburbs, which have a strong contingent of diversity and adherence to the religion of peace. In response, the government ordered local authorities to keep quiet and, if possible, to play La Marseillaise in loudspeakers. I'm not joking. This is literally out of a Soviet-era playbook. Obviously, the diversity and progress didn't particularly like the initiative, so they brought their own favorite shouts to the playground. Now, whilst all of this was happening, the presidential race is also underway, and quite a few things have happened in that department as well. Now, last time I covered this, the Republican primaries were still not concluded, and I said at the time that if François Fillon wins the Republican primaries, which he has, he's very likely to be the next French president because A. Marine Le Pen simply doesn't have and is unlikely to get enough support to get over 50% of the French electorate, and B. the socialists are in shambles and it's unlikely that they'll be able to field someone that could get into the second round to begin with. Now, it turned out I was right on both counts, at least so far. But what I didn't expect was that a former socialist would decide to run on a mishmash of a platform and actually get some support. Actually, quite a lot of support, surprisingly high. The individual I'm talking about is Emmanuel Macron, a former socialist minister and currently an independent, if you are to trust the cathedral media. In reality, Emmanuel Macron is not an independent. He's the socialists' hope to stay in power by stealth. He's also not legally an independent, since he formed the political party En Marche, under the banner of which he runs for presidency, and he also plans to field candidates for the legislative elections scheduled a short while after the presidential race. So yeah, basically, that's your independent. Anyway, the last poll that I've seen shows Macron tied with François Fillon at 21 or 22%, and Marine Le Pen at 26%. In all polls, Marine Le Pen loses against both of these men, although allegedly by a wider margin against Macron than against the Republican. But before I get to talk about Macron, I should probably also mention that François Fillon has gotten himself embroiled into a corruption scandal for having allegedly given his wife a fake job, namely that she was taking a public office salary but never showed up for work. Now, Fillon said he would withdraw from the race if he will be officially charged or indicted for corruption. Now, quite frankly, I'm not buying this. And here's why. This allegedly corruption affair allegedly cost the state 500,000 euros, at least that's what they said at first. 500,000 euros in wages over 9 years. Now, excuse me, but that's a joke. I mean, 500,000 euros divided by 108 months, that's 9 years, is 4,629 euros per month, before taxes. That's around 2,400 euros per month after taxes. I'm sorry, but that's a crap wage for Paris. If Fillon wanted to defraud the state to give a wage to his wife, don't you think he would have at least did something more, let's say, decent, as in make sure the lady gets at least 4,000 euros a month after taxes? I mean, you can barely survive in Paris with 2,400 a month. That is, if you share a flat with 2 more people and eat the cheapest and crappiest food available, never use a car, rely on walking and bicycle almost all of the time, and never buy clothes. So you will excuse me if I don't buy the notion that Fillon risked so much for almost a decade just so he can extract literally pennies for his wife. Now, earlier this month, the detractors changed the story and said that the whole thing was not worth 500,000 euros, but 830,000 euros over 15 years this time. Again, 830,000 divided by 180 is 4,611 euros per month before taxes. That's even less than the previous allegation. So, you will forgive me if I don't buy this story, which relies on the allegations of the publication Le Canard Enchaîné, which is allegedly a politically neutral satire magazine that also engages in investigative journalism. Now, I'm sure it's just a coincidence that in the last almost 20 years, 100% of their investigations have targeted right-wing figures. The last time they touched a leftist was when they uncovered the Elf Dumas affair back in 1998, which, by the way, turned out to be mostly bollocks. I mean, yeah, sure, Roland Dumas resigned, but he was never charged with anything because nothing could be proven. Now, upset about that, a French court sentenced him because he dared to criticize the public prosecutor who slandered him, a conviction that was also overturned by the European Court of Human Rights in 2010. So, basically, Le Canard Enchaîné is a shit stirrer. It stirs the pot and then walks away slowly and doesn't take any responsibility for the slander it commits. Now, mind you, I'm not saying here that Fillon didn't do nothing, but I am saying mind the source and apply common sense. Are the deeds he's accused of plausible, and do they make sense? As things stand, no, not really. The reason I'm mentioning all of these is because there is exactly one political party and one party in general that stands to gain from all of this, and that is the socialists. The hard left, open border socialists. They will win if Fillon loses. Fillon may not be perfect, but he's far better than Marine Le Pen, who, again, is a leftist. She's to the left of François Hollande on all economic issues and most social issues. And Fillon is also better than Macron. Alright, let's talk about Macron for a little while and then we can wrap this up. Now, this guy is the classic leftist chameleon who plays the tune of, "Oh, I'm neither left nor right, I'm for solutions," claptrap. Whenever you hear that, you should run as fast as possible because that's not only a leftist, but a leftist with tactics. Basically, after being a minister in one of Hollande's cabinets, he now comes and tells the story of moderation and says that he wants to, quote, transcend the left-right divide because the real divide in our country is between progressives and conservatives, close quote. Now, this literally means nothing. Yeah, you're not going to call it left or right, you're going to call it progressive or conservative. Big achievement indeed. In other interviews, he called himself a social liberal, advocating for collective solidarity. Now, long story short, Macron is a leftist demagogue similar to Tony Blair or Gerhard Schröder. And this, mind you, is openly admitted by him. He identifies himself with Schröder and Blair, who are by far the most open borders European leaders, well, except Angela Merkel. On the European Union topic, he claims he is not an Europhile, but he believes in an EU-wide minimum wage law, which is by far the most retarded thing to do. He wants more power for the EU to monitor and interrupt investments in strategic economic sectors, which in French lingo means things that others do better than France. And he generally believes in more Europe, which is by far the worst position imaginable. This is why I'm saying that François Fillon is preferable. He may be naive on certain topics, but at the very least he's not dogmatic nor an idiot. And he actually understands economics. Now, by French standards, again, this is fabulous in itself. It really is. I'm not trying to be ironic here. And this is basically why I'm skeptical of the whole scandal around François Fillon. It's basically too convenient, too timely, and, at least for now, the allegations are really ludicrous. I mean, come on. Fillon has been a prime minister in the past and also a member of the parliament multiple terms. For some reason, just now, when he came out as a favorite with a Thatcherite economic position and for strong borders, exactly now, for some reason, we're fed this story. It's just a bit too convenient. Alright. So that's pretty much it for now. That's the climate in France as it stands now. Riots, aesthetic perimeters, and weird politics. Now this is business as usual for the most part, except a big chunk of the public has had enough and are willing to vote for two rather unconventional candidates. It's not every day you see a Thatcherite option on the ballot in France, and it's also not every day when you see a National Socialist with some decent chances also on the ballot. It's going to be a bumpy ride for sure. Now I remain convinced that the second round will be between François Fillon and Le Pen, because as time goes on, Macron's open border stance will come up more and more often, and the public will want some measures in that department. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And with all of that being said, thank you for watching, thank you for your continuous and generous support, and I'll see you around on Freedom Alternative.